Every morning, before the world wakes up, you face a quiet choice. You can let the day pull you wherever it wants, or you can begin it the Stoic way, grounded, deliberate, and free. This single habit doesn't just shape your morning, it reshapes your entire life. Most people think a good morning starts with the right playlist, the right coffee, the right motivation quote. But the Stoics, they believed it starts with something far simpler, a quiet decision. When I wake up, before the noise of the world rushes in, I sit for a few minutes, and I decide who I will be today. Not what I'll achieve, not what I'll get done, but who I'll be while doing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, but I will not let them harm my peace." That was his morning ritual. Not gratitude journaling, not stretching, but preparing his mind for the day ahead, as a soldier prepares for battle. He reminded himself, the world won't change, but his response can. You see, we often wake up reacting, grabbing the phone, chasing notifications, checking what the world wants from us. But the Stoic morning begins with ownership. You claim your day before the world does. A patient of mine once told me, "Every morning, my anxiety starts before my feet touch the floor." I asked her, "What's the first thing you think when you wake up?" She said, "What's waiting for me?" And I told her, "Try asking instead, who do I choose to be when it comes?" That small shift changed her mornings. She began waking up earlier, sitting in silence for 2 minutes, reminding herself, "I am calm, I am disciplined, I am not a victim of what happens today." She said it felt awkward at first, but within weeks, her mind became her own again. That's the power of a Stoic habit. It's not about doing more. It's about being more conscious. Before your day begins, take a breath and remember, you can't control the weather, the traffic, or the moods of others, but you can decide the kind of mind you'll bring into all of it. That decision, quiet, simple, unseen, is what changes everything. So tomorrow morning, before your phone, before your coffee, before you step into the noise, sit in silence. Ask yourself, who will I be today? You'll be surprised how different your day feels when you start it with clarity instead of chaos. If this message resonates, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing Stoic wisdom with more people who might need it. And tell me in the comments, what's the first thing that runs through your mind when you wake up each morning? Part 2. How a Stoic morning builds unshakable calm. There's a reason the Stoics began each morning in silence. Not because they were avoiding the world, but because they were anchoring themselves before meeting it. They knew, if your mind wakes up in chaos, your whole day bends to that rhythm. When Seneca wrote about the importance of morning discipline, he said something beautiful. The first hour of the morning is the rudder of the day. Think about that, the rudder. It's small, but it decides where the entire ship will go. Let me tell you about a man named Robert, a retired firefighter I once worked with. For 30 years, his mornings began with sirens and emergencies. Even after retirement, his body still woke up tense, heart racing, thoughts running. He told me, "I don't know how to start a calm day. My whole life began with someone screaming for help." We started small. Each morning, before coffee, before news, before anything, I asked him to sit in stillness for 3 minutes. No music, no phone, just his breath and the morning light. At first, he hated it. He said, "My mind won't shut up." And I told him, "It's not supposed to. You're not shutting it up. You're watching it." 2 months later, he smiled and said, "The sirens still ring in my head, but they don't scare me anymore." That's the Stoic calm. Not silence outside, but silence inside the noise. You see, calm isn't the absence of motion. It's the ability to move without being moved. Epictetus reminded his students, It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. So, the morning for a Stoic is training, a rehearsal for how you'll meet the world. Every quiet breath, every moment you sit before reacting, you're strengthening your ability to choose peace over panic. The world will never slow down for you. Emails, deadlines, headlines, they'll all be waiting. But when you start your morning grounded, you carry something the world can't touch. Composure. Try this tomorrow. Before reaching for your phone, open your window. Feel the air. Notice the light. Take 5 slow breaths and remind yourself, I am not the storm. I am the mountain. That line stayed with Robert for the rest of his life. He even wrote it on a note above his coffee machine. So maybe calm isn't found in running away from noise, but in remembering that peace is a skill, and every morning, you get to practice it again. If this message speaks to you, give the video a like. It really helps this channel reach others walking the same path. And I'd love to know in the comments, what's the first thing that usually steals your calm in the morning? And how do you plan to take it back tomorrow? Part 3. The discipline of a Stoic morning. Training the mind before the world begins. Discipline. It's not a word most people enjoy hearing first thing in the morning, but the Stoics saw it not as punishment, rather as freedom in disguise. Because if you can command yourself before sunrise, the world can't command you after it. Marcus Aurelius began each day reminding himself, you will meet resistance from others and from within yourself. He knew the hardest battle wasn't with circumstance, but with the self that preferred comfort over purpose. A friend of mine, David, learned this the hard way. He retired at 58, full of plans, painting, traveling, long walks. But within a year, he told me, I'm restless. I wake up late, scroll for hours, and end up doing nothing that matters. His days had no structure, only wishes. I asked, what's the first strong thing you do each morning? He said, nothing really. So I challenged him. Each morning, before you eat, drink, or check a screen, do one deliberate act of control. It could be a short walk in cold air, making the bed perfectly, writing 3 sentences of gratitude, anything that says, I am the captain of this mind. For David, it started with 10 push-ups. Not to build muscle, but to build momentum. Soon he was reading again, journaling, even volunteering. He laughed one morning and said, turns out discipline was what I'd been missing most in retirement, not rest. That's the paradox of Stoic mornings. They look simple, but they're acts of quiet rebellion. You're declaring, I will not drift, I will direct. You choose discomfort now, so chaos later doesn't choose you. Seneca once said, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. And what is a morning but a small test? A rehearsal for the day's storms. Your morning discipline might not impress anyone. It might just be the choice to rise at the same hour, to breathe before speaking, to write down one principle you'll live by. But that's how character is built, not in grand gestures, but in quiet repetition. Every morning is a mirror. It shows you who's in charge, your mind or your moods. If you win that first small battle, the rest of the day bends to your will. So tomorrow, train before the world begins. Do one thing that requires will, not because you must, but because you can. Let your actions remind you. Discipline is not restriction, it's self-respect. If this message stirred something in you, hit like and subscribe. It helps keep these Stoic reflections alive for others seeking strength in simplicity. And tell me in the comments, what's one small discipline you could reclaim tomorrow morning? Part 4. The power of reflection. How Stoics use morning stillness to shape the soul. There's a strange kind of silence that comes just before dawn. The world hasn't begun demanding yet. No messages, no expectations. That's when the Stoics listened most closely. Not to others, but to themselves. For Marcus Aurelius, that hour was sacred. He used it to write what became the Meditations, not a book for others, but a dialogue with his own soul. He wasn't recording events. He was recalibrating himself. Each morning he would ask, "What kind of person will I choose to be today?" That question, simple, quiet, was his armor. I once met a woman named Helen, a widowed teacher in her 60s. She told me mornings were the hardest. "When I wake up," she said, "the silence reminds me that he's gone." So she filled it with news, music, endless chatter. But she never found peace that way, only distraction. One day she tried something different. She sat with her coffee, in silence, and wrote one sentence: "Today, I will live gently." Then another day: "Today, I will forgive what I can't change." Over time, that became her ritual. 5 minutes of reflection, 5 minutes of reclaiming herself. When she shared her notebook with me, I noticed something beautiful. It wasn't about control or perfection. It was about honesty, meeting herself where she was. She said, "I don't write to fix my life anymore. I write to see it clearly." That's the essence of Stoic reflection. You don't use it to judge or complain. You use it to align. Seneca called it self-conversation, a morning meeting of the soul. You ask yourself, have I been just? Have I been kind? Am I still living according to what I claim to value? This habit does something remarkable. It clears the mental fog. Instead of letting emotions drive your day, you begin seeing them, naming them, softening their hold. As Epictetus said, "No man is free unless he masters himself." And reflection is how we begin that mastery. If you spend even a few quiet minutes each morning looking inward, without judgment, you'll start to notice a shift. You'll respond, not react. You'll see problems, not drown in them. And you'll remember that peace is not something to chase. It's something to return to. So tomorrow, before the world wakes, meet yourself in silence. Ask one question, write one truth, breathe one calm breath. That's all it takes to begin shaping the soul, again and again. If this reflection speaks to you, please like and subscribe. It helps this space reach others walking the same quiet road. And share in the comments, what's one question you'd like to begin your mornings with? Part 5, the Stoic Morning, turning ordinary moments into spiritual practice. Most people wait for big moments to feel alive. The promotion, the trip, the applause. But the Stoics knew something radical. The sacred is already hidden in the ordinary. Every sunrise, every sip of water, every small act of awareness, all of it is training for the soul. Marcus Aurelius called this philosophia in action. Philosophy lived, not read. He wrote, "Do not expect the world to present you with calm. Bring your calm to the world. That begins the moment you open your eyes." A patient of mine, George, once told me, "I can't meditate. My mind won't stop." I asked, "What do you do first thing every morning?" He said, "Make coffee." So I said, "Then start there." I told him, "When you grind the beans, listen to the sound. When you pour the water, notice the steam. When you drink, taste it fully. Do not rush. That is meditation. That is philosophy." He thought it sounded silly, until he tried it. Weeks later, he said, "I've been doing it every day, and somehow everything feels slower, calmer." That's the Stoic way. You don't need temples or retreats. Your life is the temple. Every act, brushing your teeth, feeding your pet, watching the light change on the wall, is a chance to practice presence. The Stoics saw this awareness as moral discipline, because how can you live with virtue if you aren't even awake to the moment you're in? Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." When you pay attention, time expands. The simplest moments start to shine with quiet meaning. The ordinary morning becomes a spiritual ritual, not through candles or chants, but through consciousness. So tomorrow, don't rush through your routine. Let it teach you. Feel the floor under your feet. Smell the air. Watch how your thoughts wander and gently bring them back. This is the Stoic version of prayer. Not asking for more, but honoring what already is. And when you start living this way, something changes. The day stops being something to get through. It becomes something to be with. Peace stops being an event. It becomes your natural state. So maybe the Stoic morning isn't about escaping life's noise, but about learning to hear the quiet melody that was always there. If this idea resonates, give the video a like. It really helps the channel grow. And tell me in the comments, what's one small, ordinary act you could turn into a mindful practice tomorrow morning? Part 6. The Stoic Reset. Ending each morning with strength and purpose. There's a quiet point at the end of every morning, that moment before the day fully begins. You've already woken, reflected, maybe eaten or walked. The world is starting to hum again. That's when the Stoics performed one last ritual, what I like to call the reset. It wasn't about motivation or goals. It was about alignment. Marcus Aurelius used to pause and remind himself, "Today, I will meet ungrateful men, arrogant men, deceitful men. They cannot harm me unless I choose to be harmed." That's not cynicism. That's preparation. A Stoic morning ends not with excitement, but with clarity. I remember speaking with a woman named Clara, a nurse in her 60s. She had seen everything: loss, chaos, healing. But she told me her mornings used to leave her anxious. I'd scroll, rush, think of all the things that could go wrong. We worked on a simple change. Before she left home, she stood by her window, took 3 slow breaths, and said quietly, "Whatever comes today, I will respond with steadiness." That was her reset. She wasn't praying for an easy day. She was training for a strong one. And over time, that line became her shield. This is the heart of the Stoic morning. It doesn't end when the coffee is done. It ends when your mind is ready. Because no matter how well you plan, the world will interrupt. Someone will test your patience. Life will bend your schedule. But if you've taken 10 seconds to root yourself in purpose, you carry something unshakable: intention. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Your reset is your port. It's how you steer. You don't need a long ritual. Just one thought, one principle, one small vow. I will not waste today in resentment. I will keep my peace, no matter the noise. I will act, not react. When you do that, you stop living by accident. The day may still be unpredictable, but you are not. So before you walk out that door tomorrow, take that pause. Ask yourself, who do I want to be when the world gets loud? Then carry that answer with you like quiet armor. Because the Stoic morning was never about the sunrise. It was about the self that greets it. If this message grounded you, please like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and share it with someone who might need a calm beginning. And in the comments, I'd love to hear, what words would you choose as your morning reset, your reminder of strength before the day begins? When you think about it, a Stoic morning isn't about waking up early, drinking the perfect tea, or writing the perfect journal entry. It's about remembering who you are before the world tells you who to be. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his thoughts to sound wise. He wrote them to stay human, to stay grounded when power, fear, and fatigue tried to pull him off course. And that's what every one of us faces in our own way. Maybe your morning doesn't look philosophical. Maybe it's coffee in the dark before the house wakes, or a small walk, or a few words to yourself. I can handle today. That's enough, because each time you begin the day with awareness instead of hurry, you reclaim your peace. The Stoics believed that freedom starts from within, not from control, but from clarity. And clarity begins in those first quiet minutes after waking. If you win that moment, the rest of the day bends toward calm. So, tomorrow morning, Before you reach for your phone or your worries, reach inward. Remember that strength is a practice, and peace is a choice made anew every dawn. If this series helped you slow down, reflect, or breathe a little easier, take a second to like the video. It helps others find it too. Subscribe if you want more Stoic reflections like this, and tell me in the comments, what's one small morning habit that's helped you change your days, or even your life? Because sometimes, one quiet morning really does change everything.